Have you ever taken a risk on something you thought was a good idea, but really wasn't? Have you ever not taken a risk and eventually wished that you did? I'm Anna Marie and I can relate to both of those questions. In this quick set, I'm going to help you assess the risk you take and help you process the possibility that failure is a part of success. I'm going to let you into a little secret. You're going to hear directly from world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua and so much more. So let's get into it. Taking a risk can be a scary thing no matter what it is. Before we dive into the details, we're going to define the difference between a risk, calculated risk, and a gamble. Number one, a calculated risk is a carefully considered decision that is taken after reviewing all the possible positive and negative outcomes, including impacts and benefits to taking that particular risk. This could include situations like moving house or making a financial investment. Number two, on the other hand, everyday risks are taken without much of an evaluation and are usually based on the optimism of the individual person taking that risk. An everyday risk would be trying something different on the menu at your favorite restaurant or traveling a different route to work. And number three, then you have a gamble, defined as a risky action undertaken with the hope of success. The key word here is hope. For example, placing a bet on a particular sports team to win a match. The most successful risks are those which are calculated and considered. Personally, I had to take the most calculated risk of my career back in 2020 when I launched my business right in the middle of lockdown. I had to decide whether I was going to stay in my previous job for stability or pursue my passion and start a skincare business without any previous experience. I did a lot of research about ingredients and the cost of packaging for my products. I learned about taxes and registered my company and even got my mentor to help build a business plan and a budget. Bear in mind, I only had £800 to put towards the business, which was a huge financial risk for me at the time. There were many other factors I had to consider, such as, do I hire a team or do it solo? What would happen if I don't hit my financial targets every month? How would I be able to sustain myself in the next 6 months? And what sacrifices am I prepared to put in order to be successful? I had to make some very tough decisions, but ultimately it was my self-belief and confidence in my plan that drove me to have a successful 4-figure business within the first year. I'm so glad I decided to take that calculated risk. Now, let's dive a little deeper into risk-taking and how you can start to embrace it. The main thing that puts people off taking risk is the fear of failure. Some of us have an inner voice that tries to talk us out of something because you are afraid of failing, because you are not good at something, or because you are worried about what other people may think if it does not go well. The first step to becoming a well-calculated risk taker is seeing failure as something you can learn from rather than something you should run away from. The questions to ask yourself are, how do you embrace failure? And how do you turn failure into a life lesson that helps you grow? Failure is one of the greatest lessons you can have in your career, and the greats we look up to today know that all too well. Let's take media mogul Oprah Winfrey, for example. Did you know she was fired from one of her first TV jobs by a producer who said she was unfit for TV? Now she owns her own TV network, a magazine, and has a net worth of over $2 billion. More recently, our very own Bud sat down with heavyweight Anthony Joshua to talk about his experience with failure and decision making.
AJ, thanks for joining me. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you very much.
No worries, we're gonna get straight into it. And obviously you're a household name, everyone knows you, and there can be a lot of pressure with all eyes on you. Every mistake you make is kind of in the public eye. Has there ever been a time where you've learned a lesson in life the hard way?
Always learning lessons, but I probably realise my mistakes more so when I fail at something. When things are going good, you don't really need to address anything and no one really says anything other than well done. When you make a mistake, what'd you do that for? You should have done this, should have done that, and this and that, and then this and that, and then a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? And when you win, it's like, well done, sick. That's it.
Fire.
That's it, yeah. And that's what I've learned is when I make a mistake, I realize the importance of my job. When things are going well, it's like, this is what we do, we're winners. Like, what are we even worrying for? This is what we, you know what I mean? Winners mindset, this is what we do. But that's when I learned, when I lost, and recently I lost, and it just hits home that I've got a responsibility, and I'm learning in the public eye as well.
Yeah. And you know, off the back of that, are there any times where you think you could go back, and if you weren't worried about the negative effects of a decision, you would have made a different decision?
Not necessarily, no, because I wouldn't worry about the negative effects and then make the decision to still do it. Yeah. But I feel maybe a bit more planning on certain decisions. As you said, like when you're winning, really still have that mindset to kind of like restructure. And yeah, winning can sometimes blind what true success is and what true hunger is. Yeah, and you can get comfortable basically. So I'd say that's a decision I would make, is keep my eyes firmly on the prize.
Love it. And is there anyone that inspires you, that gives you that mentality that you think, I need to be more this person or channel this energy?
So the person I used to look up to, the two people were Mike Tyson and Vladimir Klitschko. Even though they're two parallels, but that's why I always used to say is like, stay hungry, stay humble. Because Mike Tyson was kind of like the stay hungry, the animalistic mindset. And then Vladimir Klitschko was quite humble, but he had a PhD in medicine and very smart, but very humble as well. So I took those two, I ran with it. But right now, it's just the man in the mirror that I use as motivation, because I know what I've got to do. I don't need influence from anyone. I know what it takes and I know what I've got to do.
I love it. And you never know when your last day's up, so you might as well make the most of it.
That's one thing I use as fuel. I know every day could be the last. I don't get too caught up in like, oh, I'm just here. It's like, nah, I know that I'm on a time limit.
Yeah.
And that's if things go well. You never know what's around the corner. Yeah. So I always have that in the back of my mind.
Love that. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
AJ mentions that self-belief is key to being able to take calculated risks. I want to bring in an interview I had with Simon Redfern. He is a director of communications at Ofcom and is an advocate for self-belief, risk-taking at work and in everyday life.
Any qualities or behaviours you think risk takers should have?
Yes, so there's one big one, I think, which is networking. And I know this is something, Apprentice Nation is really big on, but it's something that I struggled with for a very long time. You will often get invited to events where you will feel, oh my God, I don't know anyone here. This is an absolute nightmare. Take some seriously deep breaths and go and stand in the middle of the room with a drink. And you're going to have to then be very brave and not be on your phone. And you probably just need to do it for 2 minutes. No more than that, maybe even a minute. And I guarantee that someone will come over and say hello to you.
Yeah.
It's just, what you find is that there will be other people there that are on their own that don't know anyone and are desperate to make a connection. And I have made some amazing contacts over the years just by being vulnerable in the moment and then helping someone out because they're on their own. There was one time at Starbucks when I had this brilliant idea of putting in, I was thinking, how can we make the stores in Germany feel a bit more social and inclusive and stuff, and how can we kind of build a real buzz? And so I was like, okay, let's trial putting in piano in each of the Starbucks stores and see whether people will play them. Like in King's Cross Station.
Yeah.
It was back in 2012, 2013, and I was like, this could be a really cool idea. And I was thinking Germans might go for it, they love a bit of a sing-song and all that. No one used these pianos. They just used them to put cups on.
Oh, no.
So the whole thing was a complete disaster. We paid, I paid for the pianos, I paid for that, I tried to get some artists to come in and play. It just didn't work. So you kind of have to you just have to sort of move on and try again, really. But the biggest risk, I guess for me, more generically in my early career, was to actually sort of speak up, and when you're starting out, especially in this game, in the comms game, if you say you go into a company to do PR or whatever, or you go into an agency to do that, you spend your early years doing a lot of quite basic stuff. You kind of you're analyzing social media, or you're checking media cuts, or you're kind of building reports, all that stuff. And it's kind of, but you also have a lot of ideas because, you know, you're very connected to what people are thinking and all that stuff. But it's having the guts to actually, in your team meetings, to just say it and be okay if they move on the conversation, or they don't completely give it like the complete thumbs up there and then, because there may be, you know, it basically plants a seed, and you can come back to it if you really believe in it, and you can try and move it forward in other ways, right? You do the politics, but if you don't say it, you're not in the conversation, and then you're never going to get what you want. So even if you look like an idiot, my advice is just get in there and try and put your point of view.
Some valuable tips from Simon there. The main thing to take away from him is that everyone has to start somewhere. So why not find your own systems to help support you on your journey? Affirmations are a good way to ignite your self-belief journey. Pick one of these and confidently and assertively repeat in the mirror, either daily, weekly, or monthly. This is a positive approach to self-motivation. I am a better version of myself today. I am confident and capable. I have not failed, I have just started. I focus on my progress and not the end goal. All this talk about taking calculated risk, but how do you actually take one? Don't worry, there are 5 questions on the screen I suggest you ask yourself before taking the next calculated risk in your career. Number 1, what's the worst thing that can happen? Yes, the worst case scenario. Is it bad enough to not take the risk? Number 2, are you fully committed? If you're not fully committed to do whatever it takes to follow through with your decision, you're better off avoiding the risk. Number 3, what are you willing to sacrifice? Time, money, relationships? Number 4, will this risk change your life for the better? You must weigh up the positive and negative impact of the risk. And finally, number 5, what is getting in the way of you taking the risk? The answer to this one may involve you mapping out a mitigation plan. Hi, Mnelia.
Hello, gorgeous.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
Just one question for you. For someone who is so young, but still quite early on in their career, but actually very successful, do you think young people should take risks in their careers?
Absolutely. You cannot play it safe. Like, the safe zone never gets you anywhere. Comfort doesn't help you grow, is what I feel like I've learned. Like, every single time I've looked back on myself and said, wow, like, I'm actually proud of you. It's been something that I didn't want to do. Or something that doing initially felt painful, but the hardest part is starting. Every single time. It's like, just to get up takes so much out of you. But whilst you're doing it, a lot of the time, you don't even realize that everything that you needed, all the resources that you needed in order to complete it, you've been equipped with. And if you don't, then you learn, and the second time around, you get better. So you're good. Either way, take that risk. Do not take that risk, because you'll regret it.
Absolutely, that's great advice. Thank you very much.
No worries.
So, do you think you are ready to take more calculated risks in your career? I'm gonna take that as a yes and put you to the test. After watching this video, I want you to do something completely out of your comfort zone. Apply for a job that you really like but you think you're underqualified for. Or next time you go to an event, spark up a conversation with someone and make a new connection. The possibilities are endless, and so are the learning opportunities. For more guidance on risk-taking or mapping out your next moves, I recommend the following Apprentice Nation quick sets. For some direct advice on this subject and more, why not sign up to one of our mentors? You can find this on our website. Here are some words of wisdom I have been given over the years. If you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you don't step forward, you're always in the same place. And if you do what you always have done, you'll get what you've always got. I say, take to your own stage and make the risk that works for you.